The discovery shook the Galactic Council to its core. Anna leaned forward in her seat aboard the research vessel Determination, her fingers dancing across the holographic display as she analyzed the data streaming in from the deep space probe. The signal was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in recorded history. A distress beacon, pulsing with mathematical precision, encoded in a language that predated most spacefaring civilizations. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement and disbelief. Captain Velkosh, a towering Thraxian with chitinous plates covering his serpentine body, slithered over to her station. His three eyes narrowed as he examined the readings. "What am I looking at, Science Officer?" "A distress signal, carbon dated to approximately 80,000 years old." Anna's hands trembled slightly. It's been broadcasting continuously for all that time, waiting for someone to answer. The bridge fell silent. 80,000 years. Most civilizations didn't last 10,000. The oldest known artifacts in the galaxy were barely 50,000 years old. Fragments of the mysterious precursors who had vanished without explanation. "Can you decode it?" Velkosh asked. Anna shook her head. "It's in a language the translation matrix doesn't recognize. But the mathematical components suggest coordinates. Someone wanted to be found." 3 weeks later they arrived. The system was unremarkable. A dying red dwarf with 2 barren planets locked in decaying orbits. But there, drifting in the outer belt, was the source of the signal. A derelict spacecraft, its hull pitted and scarred by millennia of micrometeorite impacts. The design was alien to their databases. Cylindrical, utilitarian, with strange markings along its surface that might have been writing or merely erosion patterns. Most peculiar of all were the propulsion systems, primitive nuclear pulse drives that no civilization had used since achieving faster-than-light travel. "Preparing boarding team," Velkosh announced. "Science Officer Anna, you'll lead the analysis." "I want answers." The interior of the ancient ship was a tomb of frozen atmosphere and darkness. Anna's suit lights cut through the void as her team drifted through corridors designed for artificial gravity that had failed tens of thousands of years ago. Everything was preserved in the vacuum. Tools floating in mid-air where they'd been abandoned. Personal effects drifting like ghosts. Then they found the crew quarters. "Oh gods," one of the team members whispered. The bodies were remarkably preserved in the cold vacuum. But what made Anna's blood run cold was their appearance. Bipedal, bilateral symmetry, 5-fingered hands, forward-facing eyes. They looked almost exactly like humans, she breathed. It was impossible. Humans had only achieved spaceflight 300 years ago. They were one of the youngest species in the Galactic Council, regarded with a mixture of curiosity and condescension by elder races. They couldn't possibly have been traveling the stars 80,000 years ago, could they? Anna collected samples, documented everything, and tried to make sense of the impossible. The ship's computers were dead, but mechanical logs remained. Paper journals, etched metal plates, analog instruments that told a story of desperate exploration and catastrophic failure. The Determination returned to Council space with its findings, and the galaxy erupted in controversy. Human representatives were summoned before the Council. Experts examined the evidence. Carbon dating was repeated a dozen times. Every test confirmed the same impossible truth. Humans had been spacefaring for far longer than anyone had imagined. That's when they brought in Jack. He arrived at the council chambers without fanfare, an unremarkable human male in simple clothing, carrying only a worn leather satchel. The assembled representatives of 200 species watched him with barely concealed skepticism. "We've brought you here," Council Chairman Zixlar announced, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights, "to explain the impossible. This ship, this signal, it's dated to 80,000 years before your species supposedly achieved spaceflight. What deception is this?" Jack smiled, a strange, sad expression that Anna couldn't quite read. He opened his satchel and produced a small device, ancient but clearly maintained with obsessive care. It displayed data in languages that scrolled past too quickly to follow, until it settled on one the translation matrix recognized. "That's not a deception," Jack said quietly. "That's my first ship. The Wanderer. I lost her near the Cygnus arm when the reactor went critical. I thought I'd salvaged everything important before I evacuated, but apparently I left the distress beacon active." The chamber erupted in chaos. Accusations of fraud, demands for explanation, Shouts of impossibility. Belkosh rose from his delegation seat. You're claiming to be 80,000 years old? That's beyond even the eldest species' life extension technology. Not claiming, Jack replied, stating, You want proof? I can tell you where to find 6 other ships I abandoned, 17 colonies I founded that died before achieving sustainability, and 43 species I watched go extinct. His voice carried a weight that silenced the chamber. I've seen 3 cycles of galactic civilization rise and fall. You're the 4th. Anna stepped forward, her scientific mind wrestling with impossibility. How? Jack met her eyes, and in that moment she saw something that made her soul shiver. An abyss of time and loss that no mortal being should contain. We don't die easily, he said simply. Not naturally. Some humans discovered this trait early, very early. We scattered into the void because staying put, watching everyone we loved age and die while we remained was unbearable. So we became explorers, eternal wanderers. Some of us are still out there drifting between stars, building and abandoning, learning and forgetting. Why hide it? Sixlar demanded. Would you welcome us if you knew? Would you trust immortal beings who remember when your ancestors were presentient? We learned long ago to live quietly among each generation of humanity, to forget our age and pretend to be mortal. Jack smiled sadly, that signal calling out across 80,000 years. That's not a distress beacon asking for rescue. It's a marker, a gravestone for who I used to be, before I learned that forever is the loneliest word in any language. The chamber remained silent as the weight of eternity settled over them all. And Anna understood with horrifying clarity. Humanity's greatest explorers weren't the young adventurers seeking fame among the stars. They were the ancient ones, running from themselves across the endless dark.